Hello everyone, today I'm here with Conner Knudsen, Director of Competition for Equinox Esports, and today I want to talk about starting things, which is something I think he is an expert in. So to begin with, you recently founded and joined Equinox Esports as Director of Competition for them. So can you give me a rundown of what it really takes to get an esports organization up and running from scratch?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think, it's not something that happens a lot these days, right? We kind of think of the esports orgs, the tried and true ones, your Cloud9s, your Phases, your NBs, all those. So it was a unique position for us starting this and something we've been working on for almost a year now. So a lot of behind the scenes work, but I think it takes a team of like-minded people. We had a small team at first. At first it was the president of the org, whose name is Chad Ford, and the director of content, Chris Aguilar. So at first it was kind of just the three of us. And so I'd say, to get things really started, it takes a team of people kind of on the same page. It takes a common direction that you're willing to go. So, at some point pretty early on, I really pushed us to go into the direction of VALORANT for our esport. And so that really helped us to have some identity and kind of a core part of what we're going to be building to start. And the other thing I would say would be to have a key, kind of source of capital, and that is where Chad Ford comes into play as the president. So he is privately funding the org right now. So yeah, those are kind of three things that until you have something like that, or if you're in a position where you have to fundraise something like that coming in, those are a lot of the core ingredients, at least to get going in the beginning.
Now, you said Mr. Ford and Aguilar
Yes.
are also founding members, I believe. Do they also
Mhm.
have a massive interest in esports like you do?
Yeah, so Chris has some experience, Chris Aguilar, in he has a lot of production experience. So he's done productions for DreamHack and been involved in a lot of that, as well as a pretty extensive background working for Marvel as a colorist. So he brings a lot of this kind of he knows games and he knows esports, but he also brings a different perspective coming in from that kind of Marvel comic side. And then Chad Ford, president, businessman that previously worked in oil and gas, but is someone who, he's in his 30s. He grew up playing games like many of the rest of us did, going to friends' houses, after class in high school and stuff, and kind of fell in love with games that way. So he's someone who's always been very progressive in the way that he thinks about business opportunities and sees esports as obviously one of those that is really, really growing and kind of vital to jump in right now, and saw Oklahoma City as a prime spot for that. So, all of us do have different levels of esports experience. We also have more of a staff here that also have some esports experience they're contributing, but each of us brought a little bit of something different to the table, I think, for sure.
All right, you brought it up, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Come on. I mean, no one thinks Oklahoma when we think esports. I think Oklahoma, I'm like, it's the state with a panhandle as part of it. So why Oklahoma?
Yeah, so it's a tough question, right? Because of the stigmas with Oklahoma. I mean, we're thought of as cows, plains, windmills, oil, I guess. So, but one of our mayor right now, the mayor of Oklahoma City, is David Holt. So one of the kind of things that he says is his goal for the city, I think, really exemplifies why Oklahoma City. So his big kind of driving force is to make Oklahoma City the modern frontier. And so with many different ordinances that he's been passing in the city, he's trying to kind of advance the city and bring it. It's already a great place to live, but bring it up to speed in terms of the different sectors that we can lure people here to work in. And we see esports as a fundamental part of that. So while I think Oklahoma at large may need to catch up to us, Oklahoma City, I think, is already ready to take that position. We have the Thunder. We've shown that we can, as a city, support a sports franchise. I think we can support an esports franchise too. We want to do that. We want to partner with the city and have it be something that is truly here. And also, there's a lot of good things about Oklahoma otherwise too. So we already have this really nice kind of grassroots foundation of esports in the collegiate scene. Universities like OU, OSU, OCU, UCO, a lot of O and U acronyms, but a lot of them already have really good up and running esports programs with good leadership that we believe in. And so there's tons of people we can partner with. The cost of living is really cheap. Oklahoma City is fun and awesome. So, I mean, it's incredibly cheap to live here. So a lot of cool pluses for Oklahoma City. I think it will be a top esports destination in the future, but we obviously have work.
Yeah, awesome. And then I mean, on the topic of Oklahoma and like the rest of the Midwest
Mhm.
is often forgotten about when it comes to esports. Esports has generally been on the coasts or in foreign countries. Um,
Mhm.
and so like I see Equinox Esports as kind of like this beacon for those in the Midwest of like you haven't
Yeah,
forgotten about us, and like
yeah,
the Midwest can really do it too, and like even places like Chicago, which may not be on the edge, but like they're still forgotten about for esports. So like
yeah.
what are your thoughts on the Midwest being left out? Because you're taking a stab at making it so it's not.
Yeah, it's very. I think it's something that it has been left out thus far, largely to the fault I think of a lot of the cities just not taking initiative to investors in those cities to start orgs. But I think in the next 5 or 10 years, you'll see a lot of Midwestern cities kind of start to plant their esports roots, so to speak. I think you'll see Kansas City do that. Kansas City Pioneers already exists, and I know they're going to start trying to partner with some Chiefs players and different things. Oklahoma City will do that. Obviously you have Dallas and Austin, like
Mm-hmm.
those. Texas is already good. Atlanta's already pretty good with FaZe and Rain and that
Mm-hmm.
org there. But I think it'll continue to pop up. I think Denver is a ripe spot for esports. I think even you could talk about Chicago is obviously another great one. You could even look at like Tennessee, Kentucky, Nebraska. Like there are big cities in each of these states, relatively big,
Yeah.
that I think could eventually facilitate esports, at least at the collegiate level. Like even if it's not a pro org, we don't want to oversaturate, early on, but at least let's get some collegiate energy, K through 12 energy going in those states.
Okay. I mean, do you think it's vital for the esports scene that these states are included?
I would like to think it is, yeah. I think you could I guess devil's advocate, you could say that esports could function in the country without it because it has like it's thrived just in LA for a long time. But I think what the Overwatch League proved in its season it actually got to do homestands is that they work, that there are local fans in every city, whether it be in Florida or New York or Dallas or wherever, that will come out to these events. I think that is true of every city with a population base, even in the Midwest where esports isn't relevant. There are fans and gamers and esports connoisseurs all over the country, whether you're in the boonies or not. So I think that while it might not be vital, I think rising tide raises all ships. Everyone gets better if the Midwest is included.
Awesome. And I think also like you brought it up like cost of living that,
Yeah,
these investors can look at it like, well, esports is a very digital thing, and as long as you have a stable interconnection, which is possible in a lot of major cities, you can have a much lower cost of, structures and infrastructure for these organizations, which can help a
yeah,
lot, I think.
yeah. I agree. I think that's I it would not surprise me if other orgs that are currently LA based even moved to, at least had like satellite campuses in the Midwest just because of cost of living. It is insane to try and get a team house in LA or something. So I
And
could
they're
not
big
imagine.
houses.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah.
Awesome. Now, you talked a little bit about it earlier with Mr. Ford about fundraising for a new team. What else can you tell me about that? Like, how do you pitch investors?
Yeah, so we were fortunate enough where we didn't really have to do that. So this was something that Chad had kind of, it was his brainchild actually in the beginning. So we already kind of had the investor to start.
So,
So
like,
this
how
is
about then,
yeah,
like, what was he looking for?
yeah. And so Chad's goals, his goal from the outset is to bring a franchise team to Oklahoma City or to have a franchise esports team. So the way we kind of look at it is Chad has provided us a lot of the big picture goals and the kind of I don't know the island that the ship is sending. He gave us a treasure map with an X on it and told us to go here. And he brought on people who understand esports at a deeper level, are ingrained in esports. Those kinds of people that you need in an org. A lot of orgs struggle at certain points because they don't have that. And so I think he's done a great job with who he's brought on. And we're kind of the ones, tying the knots in the ship, rowing, making sure our due course is correct to get to the island. Terrible analogy, but we're going to
I
go
think
with
it
it.
works.
Okay. but yes, and I could, this is not to say that fundraising would be out of the question for us in the future. So, for example, if we were to join a league with certain franchise fees, I don't know that Chad would want to just take the burden of that on his own. I think this is something, we would, if I'm just speaking candidly, I would love to get Thunder players involved. I'd love to get people who are kind of Oklahoma City born and bred involved. So that's a goal I have personally, whether it's OU alumni, whatever it might be. So I think that's a possibility down the line.
Awesome. Sounds like a lot of like what someone looking to do the same thing that you're doing and bring a new esports franchise. Like we want to build, a whole community around this city that is missing.
Yeah.
And that's like a really good pitch point.
Yeah, and it's not only building a community that doesn't exist, it's also trying to bolster the community that does exist that is just small and in the shadows right now. Like bringing those people out, investing in games that they play, things like that.
Awesome. Now, you mentioned earlier, Equinox Esports is competing in VALORANT, which is a new esport. It's just come out this year. It's, I think, the first Riot-run competitive tournament's coming out in December.
Yeah, it's the qualifiers are happening now, but yeah.
But before that, it's just been all third party. So like,
yes.
What are the challenges of working such a nascent scene, even if it's by an esports veteran?
Yeah, I think it's challenging in the sense that we don't have our identity as an esport quite yet. Speaking about Valorant, I think Riot is doing a really good job taking their time with that, and I think this is actually a benefit as well because you have different products like the Overwatch League. I'm not trying to take a stab at Blizzard or anything, but the Overwatch League kind of may have solidified their model a little too soon and kind of jumped in a little too fast with the amount of money and just the infrastructure set up, to where I think Valorant is doing a good job kind of waiting, seeing what the orgs want, seeing what the community wants, let kind of the democracy build what it is this is going to look like to a degree. Obviously, at some point, Valorant will have to make a decision on what it's going to be. But so I think as long as we have patience with Valorant and developing the esport and believe in them and they believe in the orgs and communicate with us, which they have so far, I think we're in a good spot to grow over the next 2 to 10 years and beyond that as an esport for sure.
Awesome. And then, it's no secret you covered Overwatch League for quite a long time.
Yep.
What were the biggest lessons you took from that scene as a reporter that you've brought to Equinox Esports?
That's a good question. It's a really good question. So when you're a reporter, you kind of learn to, part of your job is seeing things as they are and telling the story of things as they truly are. You're not putting any bias on things, and I think that experience in and of itself has been valuable to me here at Equinox, because I've learned to just see things as an org, not from a biased perspective. If we're doing poorly in something or we're not, producing a piece of content as maybe we should be, again, a reporter's job is to kind of call things out. So I think that has been something. I'm not just calling out my coworkers all the time or anything, but I think it's been valuable. I think another thing too is a lot of times, this is a simple thing, but a lot of times orgs don't really know how to interact with the media, whether it be not training players, how to do like post-game pressers. Like I would get some Overwatch League guys that clearly had not been prepped, and I feel bad. Like I just, we have to ask these questions, we have to do things.
It was bad.
It was tough. And, usually as a reporter, you just watch that one player that talks. We want to kind of always have that one player that talks, that understands, like, you just have to get through it. You have to, you have to give the media something and be kind to them. So, we're not going to pander to the media, like, or anything like that. But, like, I do want to have us as an org be friendly to those reporters that do want to cover us. I'm a big proponent in, when stories are written about you, it's a good thing. If they're for the right reasons, it's generally always a good thing to have stories versus not. So, I could go on because, my experience at the Game House and as a reporter just taught me like so many valuable lessons about esports. That's where I really learned most of what I know about esports today. And so I could go on and on and on about this, but I think those are good for now. Awesome.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Like the media trained players versus the non-media trained players, it's a world of, it's just so different when you get into that interview with one of them, and it hurts when they're not trained enough to know how to phrase answers.
Yeah, it really is tough.
So I kind of want to end on some advice on what you would give people not in those major cities with esports scenes.
Okay.
Like, what would you give them to like help inspire them of staying on this course of getting into esports and getting an org near them and getting that support?
Yeah. I would urge a few kind of core things. Number one is don't be afraid to network. You have to be willing to network not only within esports, in different game titles than the one you may be familiar with in your city, but also outside of esports. I mean, at the end of the day, you do have to have capital to run an esports org. And so if you are looking for that, you usually can't get that within an endemic esports community. You have to go outside of it, typically. So that's kind of number one. Number two would be to have patience. I mean, build your communities, whether it's tournament organization and running like a local Smash or Hearthstone or Overwatch tournament. Just kind of listen to what the people in your city love to do, and play it as it lies. Have that knowledge, have that base, to where if you do run into an investment in the line, you can have analytics, you can have statistics about what kind of turnout you already have and what you think you can become, those kinds of things. So yeah, those are kind of core things. I think it'll get there. So don't give up on esports. Still, like, if you're young, still go to college and like apply yourself or whatever it may be. Don't just like wait around, but put yourself in a position to have success if an esports org does kind of pop up in your area.
Awesome. And then you mentioned it earlier. There's a lot of collegiate esports programs throughout all of the U.S. So check those out too.
Absolutely. Yeah, clubs like that are like amazing to get involved in. I wish I would have had that more when I was in college. Like it just wasn't quite there yet. I mean, I'm sure it was. I just didn't know it was there. And so I really wish I would have had more of that.
And I think the advice we can give to everyone is if it's not there, start it.
Yeah, very true. Oh my gosh, so true. Find a faculty member or someone that is like-minded to you, even if it's just a group of students, and advocate for a student club, like something. It is in your power to do that, especially if you're at a smaller school without, logistics to hop through and things like that. But you can, it's great. I totally agree.
Awesome. Well, that is all I have for you. So I want to thank you very much for taking the time to talk with me today. I really look forward to seeing what Equinox Esports can do in the next year and the years after that. It looks very promising for you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. Always a pleasure to talk to you too. Be happy to talk anytime.
All right, everyone else, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.